there's a lack of communication and accountability and professionalism in the industry in general. And if you can simply make communication easy for the customer or the client, you're going to win.
Welcome to the Painter Growth Podcast, where we help you scale your painting company in record time. Join us as we explore sales, marketing, hiring, finances, leadership, and more, everything that you need to know to scale and grow your painting business. I hope you enjoy and subscribe. What's up, everybody? Mike Gore-Hickman here, founder of paintergrowth.com. And thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Painter Growth Podcast. I have a wonderful guest here. Super excited to sit down and chat with my good friend, John Evans, founder of Everline Coatings, previous painting contractor. Huge growth story, really quick, basically 17 locations to almost 100 locations in just over a year. And John, stoked to have you here, man.
Hey, thanks for having me, Mike. Always a pleasure to connect and talk shop.
Awesome. So let's just start out with your origin story. How did you get into painting, and how did you get into the pavement maintenance business, and where are you now? Just a quick 5 minutes. Give the guys some context.
Sure. Well, even going before that, my parents were entrepreneurs. They were actually multi-unit franchise owners in the in the 80s, 90s, 2000s, that sort of thing. So kind of grew up around entrepreneurs and going to the office and that sort of thing. And then, of course, going into high school, they're just working in various brands like franchise brands and things like that. So not really understanding it or knowing it at the time, but just really starting to get used to standard operating procedures and just more structured environment and what that looks like. Then as soon as I went to school, to university, I became a College Pro Painters franchisee, and ran that for about 3 years. So my first first year was a classic year. Went in more or less super overconfident, thought I knew everything, and then just totally got my first season, just hired all my friends, and it was a lost year in that year. And so really there was two options that you could do as an entrepreneur: is lick your wounds and just say I this wasn't for me, or it was like I knew everything I was doing wrong. Let's push forward and make it a success. So I was able to get it up to one of the top performing College Pro locations in North America as a result. And then as soon as I finished, wrapped up that College Pro Painters program, I knew I wanted to keep running my own business, and I went to a franchise show. It's just to kind of see, and I ran into a company that was not selling a franchise, but licensing a durable type of traffic marking product. And so they actually had a line painting machine on display. So me coming from the painting world, a line painting machine is essentially a airless Graco airless sprayer on wheels. So it caught my eye, caught my attention, and went up and started discussing the industry. And it was discussed that very much like the painting industry, the line painting world, parking lot line painting world was just lacking a well-branded leader. And more or less kind of is just applying a lot of those elements that I learned in the painting industry and trade, as well as being combined with a brand, and applying them to this industry. And once we just started operating, and then doubled in revenue over and over and over again, and eventually it turned into we started to franchise the business. And this was back in 2016, 17 here in Canada. And then I've kind of grown a little bit since then.
Amazing. Huge story. So you ran your business for how many years before you decided to sell your first franchise?
It was about 5 years.
5 years.
Yeah.
One thing I really liked is how you identified a need, which was a professionalism in a new industry that you knew very little about, and realized that it could be done better quite easily.
Well, a lot of it was in the foundation of the classic cliche, contractor issue, which is that there's a lack of communication and accountability and professionalism in the industry in general. And if you can simply make communication easy for the customer or the client, you're going to win. It really is simple as that. And we started applying that in this industry, and yeah, it's still our number one biggest compliment all across North America.
Love it. I mean, especially in the painting industry, there's such a low bar set for customer service and communication and
Yep.
professionalism.
Oh yeah. Well, I think that that's where, it's kind of one of those things where it's not a lot of effort. It's just being on your toes and adjusting your habits to stay on top, to make sure your client is informed. The beginning of every day, the end of every day. Simple as that, right? And if you can systemize that to make sure that that does happen with a minimal effort, whether it is with a team member or if it's even automated through software or something like that, then you're already cut above the rest.
So I do want to talk about getting commercial work because obviously your business is pretty much exclusively B2B, and there's a lot of similarities to just painting contractors and how they approach B2B. But before I do that, I want to just dive into the importance of systems because creating a franchise is all about systems. And you've done what so many painters have tried to do, where they get one or two locations and if they have this aspirations of wanting to franchise all across the country. I can't tell you how many painters I've talked to who want to do that. And
Yeah.
you have done it in a very similar industry. So just let's talk about identifying systems in a small business and then scaling those up. What does your process for that look like?
So, well, coming from a franchise system, I was used to having SOPs and systems to work with. So I had experienced that, and of course, in my prior history of working in franchise businesses, so I began to build systems just for myself. To because when it came to training somebody or even hiring or the estimation process or sales process, if I found it just used far more brain power and just constantly thinking on my feet trying to remember what was the process for this, if there even was one, to make sure that the clients were getting a uniform experience that covered all bases. And I think that once you start developing those systems to really make the execution of your service much more consistent, you are now inadvertently creating something scalable where you have a written procedure that somebody else can do. And say there's something, there's a lot of people that can't delegate or hand off, or not can't, but they have a hard time letting go and letting their business grow. That they want to have their hands on everything. If say there's just something you do or that the contractor does that just really makes the day for the customers, add it to the system. And I think that that is what was kind of a really critical element for me was, for instance, I when I would send off the crews when I was running the first location, send off the crews, it was a big morale booster, for them. I just chat, joke around with the crew, things like that as they're getting ready to go get out the door, and they'd be energized and ready to roll. But then it came to the point where I couldn't be at every, what we call a scrum, where everyone gets together and it's kind of like a toolbox talk. And so I systemized, there's, whoever's leading the scrum has to provide a validation or uplifting moment, right? To energize the team, to get them out there. So it's in a way simulating me being there and happening that way. So that allowed the consistent execution of just basic tasks that I didn't have to personally do, which allowed for scale. And then, of course, making sure that that happens in your own business first. And franchising it, that is, that's a whole other world. We could have a whole podcast on that, that kind of thing.
Yeah, so I mean, even on the single location, a lot of guys are scared to systemize and delegate various processes and procedures that they do because they don't want their team to make mistakes, and they
Mhm.
don't want
Yeah.
those mistakes to reflect on them. So, I mean, how did you at the time deal with that? And I'm sure you still deal with some of that
Oh yeah.
today.
Yeah, so I'm of the very strong opinion that some fires have to burn. It's an important part of the process. That if you go and you are constantly preventing fires from ever happening by either just not delegating whatsoever or not giving your staff autonomy, then you are preventing the development of that process, because when things happen, you review and you say, okay, what happened here? Say an issue pops up. What happened here in our process that failed? Was there a variable that we need to consider in the future? And then you adjust that process, and then you keep going forward. Now, there's also something really interesting we discovered with our rapid pace of growth. Of course, there are issues on site that happen from time to time, right? Deficiencies, things like that, and it all goes back to communication. There's something called the I guess the continued service paradox, where that if the job had gone off without a hitch and it was great and the customer's happy, all that sort of stuff, then you're actually not going to get as deep of a relationship with them than as if you did work, your crew had a deficiency or something went wrong, right? And then you came in and saved the day with a corrective process that actually builds a deeper relationship with the customer to trust you more. So it's something that it's kind of like you kind of want fires to happen because it depends on how you deal with them. That starts off, I guess, the trust with the client on the right foot.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, you don't want to go making problems, but you want to look at problems as opportunities.
100%. Yeah, no, they kind of have to happen.
Yeah.
You know, the they say, in all the entrepreneurial quotes or whatever, like you can't be successful without failing. Well, this is a form of failing, and it's part of the process. And as long as you're a reasonable human being, and in the painting trade especially, problems can be fixed. You paint a color the wrong wall, you spill some paint, you don't scope's different or whatever. Everything's fixable. It's now just how do you deal with the people side of the business
Yeah,
there.
there are no paint emergencies.
That's it. That's it. Yeah. I mean, we've all gotten those phone calls from clients at 10:30 at night because you stepped on their flowers. Well, you can plant new flowers,
Yeah.
right? Things like that.
So, yeah, systems are inevitably super important. What was the biggest learning that you had going from a single location to the quality of the systems needed as you scaled?
I think that the main thing is that they have to be pretty all encompassing from the very beginning of I have no customers at all right now. What do I do? All the way to how do I invoice this customer, and then how do I continue the relationship going on that there. So we developed more or less a flow chart of we call it mission control. It's like I have no customers. Here's the marketing process. Eventually, someone prospecting. It's going to be like, what does it take to go and find our customers and breaking that down. And then it's like, if they say no, what's the process for if they say no? Because it doesn't stop there. Like, it's not just like no means not yet for a lot of customers, especially in the B2B world. If they say yes, okay, now you've entered the sales process. You have somebody who's interested in a quote. Now, how do you secure that quote? And then dealing with all the variables going down that way. Then you get the job, right? And then it's like, how do you get ready for the job? There's the pre-production process, then there's the actual production process, then the post-production process that goes on with it. So I think that just my biggest learning is you need these variables for every step of the way or I guess processes for every step of the way to make sure that you're generally able to handle any situation, or your team is.
So it sounds like the big difference is that a small company, or an owner operator type, less than a couple million a year type company, might have a bunch of processes, but the owner is still going to be responsible for things. And if the owner got hit by a bus, a lot of those things wouldn't happen, even if they have systems and processes. But,
No, yeah.
if you got hit by a bus, hopefully you don't. But if you did, it sounds like more or less Everline will continue.
Oh yeah, 100% it would. We have a. I mean, I get it. It's easier said than done. If you asked me 5 years ago, probably not, right? Or even less than that, probably not. With scale came a greater team, and the team needs to understand what the objective is for the company, and they're executing on that objective and that vision that we had set for all for all of that there. So it would, it's not like I go and do things myself that are not repeatable. I mean, like, I have my certain magic that I do as the founder of the company, and that's my role. But the rest of the actual function of ensuring that the franchisees are well supported continues on with a team that knows exactly how I want it done.
It's awesome. Yeah, it's super inspirational and aspirational for many people.
Mm-hmm.
Now, shifting gears a little bit. So for a little bit of a cred pump, approximately how much commercial work will your company secure and produce this year?
We're probably going to be between 25 and 30 million.
Okay, couple of jobs.
Yeah.
And for clarity, you also have some big, you have secured and expanded national contracts with 7-Eleven, with Home Depot, with huge companies like that. So huge opportunities there. Let's get started at the very beginning of securing commercial work. Rewind the clock to 2008 or whenever you were, running your location in Calgary. How did you figure out which leads to call, who to call, how to call them, how to outreach them? How did you get commercial work to start?
So, well, when I very first started, I knew, you need to find the decision maker, right? And that takes research. So a lot of my days in the earlier days were just going on LinkedIn. They were going on like just the property management website, driving around town, seeing a strip mall or property management company, and just seeing their logo on the building itself. Googling the logo right in the parking lot there, and most of the time, actually, the property manager's name is listed there, right? And now the thing is, though, their phone is ringing off the hook with two things. That's primarily some sort of problem or issue. It's there's my air conditioner's broken. We're having a flood. It's always some sort of problem. No one ever calls their property manager to see how they're doing, that kind of thing. Then it goes into then it's being solicited by contractors, painters, plumbers, landscapers, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, that all want the opportunity to bid. So a lot of it came from how do you get their attention because they're busy. They're busy, and most of the time too they I guess in the property management world internally they'll have a preferred vendor list, so it's even questionable if they're even searching or googling for their properties and things like that. So you got to go directly after them. You still have to cast a net online, of course, to capture all those things, but this is where at the end of the day, though, this is a way to capture them from multiple touch points, because in B2B sales, it is different than B2C for a couple of reasons. One is you're kind of dealing with a force field. Somebody is doing the work at the building or property or for that manager there currently. It's pretty rare that an established B2B customer doesn't have somebody on their Rolodex. So you need to be able to get in there and get your name added to that vendor list. The next part about it is that these property managers are they're dealing with like I guess budget season, and they have certain buying cycles, and at every each property manager or business owner even is at a different state as to when they're willing to buy, because you have to think about it that when a B2B I guess customer comes to us as painters and they're trying to sell you on something, you might be like, yeah, that's an issue I need to get solved right away, or you're gonna be like, you know what, this is not an issue for me here right now, but it will be eventually. And in the painting world, it will be eventually. So it's like, how do you get into that buying cycle or find out when they're accepting bids and things like that? So this is not even really a sales pitch. This is just, when do you accept bids for these things? And that's we've systemized that whole thing. And then of course, then it goes deeper into refining how do you change language and things like that, and dealing with clients to make sure that you don't come across as salesy, pushy, that you come across as just a solid partner that's highly communicative.
Important is volume in this game.
Oh, pretty like you have to constantly keep that pipeline going, because, like I said, you don't know where people are at in their buying cycle. So as you go and you build out that list of people you're going to prospect to, putting them into a CRM to really to make sure that you are keeping track of when you reached out, any notes from the interaction. If they say, I collect quotes for this in March, call me then. Well, then, yeah, make a note and call them in March or February, even better. So things like that are all there. But in B2B, it's all volume reach outs, big time. Because you're trying to find that needle in a haystack as to when that buyer is ready to buy, or if they're not, finding out when they will be ready to buy so that you can be there for when they are.
On a previous call that you came on with us, you talked about, I can't remember the exact term that you had, but something about the buying window, or having them in the
The
pocket.
window of dissatisfaction.
The window of dissatisfaction. Could you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so it's a concept created by author Craig Elias, based here in Calgary. Actually, it's when you have a contractor. So you say you're a property manager and you've got a guy, right? And you're getting a phone call from this pesky painter, aka you here, and they're saying, "Hey, I'd like to bid." And then you're saying, "Well, you know what? I'm happy with my guy. I'm not even going to accept bids," right? And so then that property manager or whoever hires that person, and then they drop the ball for one way or another, right? That contractor has become comfortable with that relationship, and then they don't show up on time or push the job back or whatever, right? There's going to be that moment where that B2B customer is going to be like, this doesn't work for me right now, right? And then if you can somehow time and get in on that sweet spot where, hey, this is Mike, from Mike's Painting, you're like, I do need this because my guy is, jerking me around, that kind of thing. Now you're in, you're going to knock it out of the park. And guess who's the new guy?
The cool thing about painting contractors is that window of dissatisfaction is guaranteed.
Oh yeah, 100%. It's like, so when you hear, I've got a guy, I've got a painter, I've got a painter, I've got a painter, it's in B2B sales. That no doesn't mean no. It means not yet. They will drop the ball. It's just, how do you get there? And I'll give a perfect example, even with painting suppliers. I won't name names, but there was it was Die Hard, a certain painting supplier, and another paint supplier called me, and they're like, "Hey, I love your paint business. You buy a lot of paint." And I was like, "Well, I'm happy with my paint supplier. I'm never moving, never moving. Loved my rep, loved everything." And then he just kept calling, kept calling, kept calling. And it came a moment where they could not deliver my order. And so guess who I called? I said, "Hey, listen, I need X amount of paint like tomorrow, 7:30 a.m." And who was there hand bombing like 4 skids of paint out of his truck into my shop at 7:30 in the morning? Was that second paint supplier, and then he got years of revenue off of me just for that. And so it's like identical to what we deal with in the B2B world.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, window of dissatisfaction. Because so often I talk to contractors, they do a little bit of outreach to some property managers or builders or real estate, agents or something like that, and they get a no, and then they just move on.
Yeah.
So
Oh
how do
yeah.
you work past that, and what type of outreach schedule would you recommend? Sounds like a lot.
Yeah, I mean, you can ask. There's a whole series of questions you can ask depending on that. It's like, are you happy with who you're using with now? They'll say, yeah, I am. And it's just like, great. Well, I want to be here as a second option in case something happens, they get too busy or something like that. Or if you'd like to price check them, happy to do that. Really getting yourself in a position where you're a viable alternative to that guy that they have. And then,
Mhm.
like you said, it's pretty much inevitable that they're going to need a viable alternative.
I like that. Get yourself in position to be a viable alternative, right? Give yourself a chance.
That's right. And it might happen next year, it might happen in 5.
Yeah.
But that's the B2B game. And
Yeah.
then now it's on you to, of course, to execute on the contracts to make sure that you don't fall victim to the window of dissatisfaction.
100%. You got to walk the walk.
Yep.
How important is professional marketing material during B2B outreach?
I mean, I think now just where the world is going with digital marketing and just being able to present ourselves, brand is increasingly important as a method of demonstrating credibility. So now a lot of decision makers now, or arguably the quote collectors in the B2B world, they're millennials, and and they're middle management type pieces there, and they millennials are certainly they want to feel good about who they're working with, and if you have solid branding or whatnot, that's a signal that you care. That you care about what you present and how you present it, and the message that you're looking to put out there, and that is noticed by customers far more than it used to be.
Totally
Because
agree.
we're in the Instagram world, right? Everything's got to look good. When you look up on yourself online. I mean, you gotta create that FOMO. I'm missing out by not getting work by this painting contractor.
In the world of Fiverr and Vistaprint, there's no reason not to look professional.
Oh yeah, 100%. Even getting a graphic designer to put stuff together, go on Upwork, tell them what you want. You can get it done for you pretty inexpensively.
Yeah, absolutely. I like Fiverr for those types of gigs.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. How about when it comes to the personal connection? With these, decision makers in these firms.
Yeah.
You have a meeting with them in their office. You see a, Boston Bruins uh, shadow box or something.
Yeah.
How do you incorporate that type of personal information into your outreach?
So what you're talking about, it's a concept called in B2B sales, becoming the emotional favorite in a bidding environment, and that is something. It's a word called propinquity, and it's a feeling of closeness, and it's actually proven that even if you are the most expensive contractor, that if you are the emotional favorite, that that contact that you're dealing with will create all sorts of mental gymnastics over why they picked you. It wasn't price. It was because of this, and this, and this, and this. And the person, if you think that you're losing jobs due to price alone, it's because you don't understand the concept of propinquity and how that works out. And I think that part of it is building rapport. It's asking them, did you have a good weekend? It's like, what did you do this weekend? And then they'll tell you, oh, I did this or this or this or whatever, right? And like that's a hook to get connected, to try and align interests so that you're able to connect as a human being, so that when you leave that meeting, you're like, hey, I liked that guy, I want to work with them on this project, right? And down to the point where it's like, even if your numbers are way higher than the rest of the pack, that when you build a close enough relationship, they'll tell you, and you'll try to find a way to work it out.
Yeah, I love that. I learned a new word today. Uh, propinquity.
Yeah,
The concept of closeness
that's
is
right.
what Google says. So not physical closeness, but emotional closeness, and developing that rapport on a whole nother level.
100%. And that was the takeaway there, was the mental gymnastics beyond price to justify why they went with you. That is very much a real thing.
Yeah, this can be applied to residential as well as commercial. Everyone
Yeah,
is an emotional being. So if you can tap into that, then all the better.
100%. Yeah, I mean that's it. Is that these are still people on the other side of it. There's just more variables in the B2B world that you're dealing with because of budgets, approvals, et
Boards.
cetera, boards, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, but then when they're fighting for you to their board, I mean, that's what you want. It's not just here's all the quotes I received. Which one do you want? It's like
Mhm.
these are the quotes I received, but this one impressed me the most. And then like, okay, why? And then they make the recommendation. The board will generally say, we'll go with your recommendation. And then, or they'll say, we're going to go with the cheapest. They might go and say, let me go and see if I can work this guy down to make them cheapest. And then they come back to you and they say, hey, can we work on this? You're going to say, let's adjust the scope and make this work out to what the budget restrictions are. You're in.
Awesome. And you can't achieve any of that without your propinquity.
Exactly.
Yeah. So a lot of people use a CRM to manage their B2C, clients. So,
Mm-hmm.
how many estimates am I doing? How many leads do I have? How do you apply the concept of a CRM to your B2B sales, knowing that it's not quite as straight of a line as a residential sale?
It's so how we do it, it's still kind of done in a linear path for the process. So we'll have a marketing or a prospecting pipeline and then an actual sales pipeline. So the sales pipeline should more or less be pretty similar to how it works, but with some slight with B2C. But with the adjustment ours, and we call it, just because of our business, we call it the parking lot. Is that there's this, it kind of signals this job is in limbo, so that you're able to, with just key notes in your CRM, to make sure that you do follow up with that job on a regular basis. Because yeah, the squeaky wheel gets the grease, and that's another key element, because
So it would, just to clarify, prospecting is when you're developing that relationship with that potential decision maker, with that property manager, and then the sales pipeline is once that property manager gives you a quote or an opportunity to bid or an RFP, then that single job goes into the sales pipeline.
correct.
Okay, so what types of, let's start on the prospecting pipeline, because that's more foreign to more people. What are the various stages in your prospecting pipeline?
So we start off with just a raw list, of building out, what are the properties, what are the property management companies in town, what's like how do we just build out who potential people are. But then because of this is now in B2B a much more personal connection than just like hello homeowner. This is something where you got to find out who the actual person is on site. So, just so then it's utilizing Google, phoning the company. Hey, is this person the property manager for this area here? That sort of thing. And then, we personally do just like, a series of directive, I guess, touch points dedicated to that specific person. And then yeah, we're able to track the open rates, the success, I guess, of those campaigns, and adjust the tactics accordingly. But
And
I mean,
what are the stages that you segment your
so
prospecting
ours is
pipeline?
very specific to ours, but
Okay.
it's kind of like to generalize you got the just raw list, confirming the list. Then the next series is your process of how you're hitting all those touch points, right? So for us, we have physical touch point, a digital touch point, a passive touch point, and so they go through all of those stages. Then finally, just like get on the phone, let's talk about it, right? And then or meet with them, bring them coffee, donuts, introduce yourself, and then you're able to then eventually they just stay in that prospecting stage until they're ready to buy.
Hmm. And you won't classify them as ready to buy until not just a verbal agreement to send you a job, but that actual sending you an RFP.
No, I would say even if it's verbal, if they say I'd like a quote for this property, then yeah, you're in the sales process
Oh,
now.
sorry, I meant like, hey, we'll definitely consider you next time we have something come up.
I would keep them in prospecting,
Yeah.
because you're going to want to touch up. You're going to want to touch base with them for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. I love that. And with the system that you built, across Canada and the US, this is happening tens of thousands of times a day.
Yep.
Love it. Now, for someone to get started, how would you? I mean, you're saying go on Google and just find a list and start dialing.
Yeah. That's it. I mean, doesn't get any more basic than that. Everyone wants a magic pill for for reaching out to all these people. I'm sorry, it doesn't exist. It's like that Wolf of Wall Street quote. You're behind on rent, pick up the phone and start dialing. This is a dial. B2B is a dial for dollars. And again, you can have digital marketing, I guess, as the icing of the cake, but the actual cake itself is you do need to have an active, consistent reach out campaign to let these property managers know you exist and that you are a viable alternative, or you're the guy right out of the gate.
Yeah, 100%. Do the thing, get the result, and then systemize it.
Yeah, and we deal with that where people, I know a lot of business owners or even some of our franchisees, they want to sit back and just wait for the call-ins to come in, but that's not as often, as not going to happen as much as it does in B2C.
Mm-hmm.
So it's something where you do need to. It is a slog. It is work. It's a full-time job. It's if you're gonna half-ass it, then you're gonna get half-ass results. When you dedicate and you put 2 feet into it, then and you keep it consistent, you can block schedule off a dedicated time for commercial clients, and yeah, you're gonna get some wins just by action.
100%. Double your output and you'll double your input.
That's right.
Yeah. So now that you've reached, I mean, not now, but over the last couple years, you've reached a critical mass. How has your branding and your clean brand impacted the rate at which customers perceive you and you get in jobs?
Well, I think, especially as we entered the United States, we really refined what our message was. Because before it was like, we're line painters and seal coaters and asphalt repair people. It's like, it's just like, these are the things we do. But then, as we refined that approach, we really needed to communicate through our branding and marketing that we're a solid partner, that we communicate, that we treat pavement as an asset, and we utilize innovative products and materials. We really identify just those 3 uniques that make us who we are, and then apply that in all of our messaging to make sure that was very clear, and of course in an aesthetically pleasing way. But it can't just be like, we are painters. Like that doesn't tell you anything. They need to know more.
Sure. One thing before we move on is you, like I said before, you have a lot of or several corporate deals with big companies like Home Depot and 7-Eleven. How did you get those started, and what are they like now?
Same process we've been talking about this whole time.
Just identifying the decision maker within the corporate structure, learning
Exactly.
and expanding.
Yep. That's exactly it. It's just a bigger fish. And of course, to get the bigger fish, you have to be able to handle the bigger fish. So they're very skeptical of a lot of contractors out there that promise the world and then totally screw up, that
Yeah.
sort of thing. So, to get some of those larger accounts, I think for most people, I guess, listening to this, finding a facility management company to offer yourself as a vendor, because these facility management companies usually act as a catch-all to hunt down and find subcontractors, and that's just generally how it goes. I would say they'd have probably better luck accessing those national accounts, because these are typically these facility management companies are centralized, and they'll say, "Hey, Home Depot, I'll handle all of your properties," and then they go and find subcontractors in each region. We're able to self-perform, which makes us unique. But just in general, the way it's worked is on a national level. One-offs are tougher to get, so it's like you got to align with who has the bigger contract.
Gotcha. Yeah, and it's like sifting through the smaller contracts, doing a lot of work growing. That's kind of required before you get the hey, here's all the Home Depots in the Midwest.
Well, oh yeah, or I mean, or getting one Home
Hmm.
Depot, or getting, because what could happen, you reach out to Home Depot, and I've seen it over and over again. You reach out to Home Depot, and then you find a way to have propinquity with the guy, and he's like, I want to work with you. I'll give you all of my painting to be done all across the western half of the continent. Uh, Most people can't handle that, right? That's a lot. So they're going to be, now we got this big fish, so now we're hunting down subcontractors ourselves and managing all of that. Now you're in a whole new business. If we're painters, I would say you'd want to go after those who are managing the subcontractors to be able to get that local set of Home Depots. And then unless you expand on a national level, that's really all you can handle. And if you burn them, you're out. So that's the reality of it.
Yeah, you only get one chance. You
Yeah,
don't want to. You don't want to punch too far above your weight class. You're gonna get punched
100%.
back.
Yep. Yeah. Well, people eat with their eyes, right? They're like, "Oh, that looks like a big job. Can you even do this job? Can your cash flow? Can you even afford to do this job? Will you kill yourself waiting for the receivable?"
Yeah,
Right? It's the slow and steady wins the race at the end of the day.
yeah. Cash flow cycle is a whole another discussion.
Oh yeah.
Any holes in the process that I missed?
Um, not that I'm aware of. I mean, really, it's connecting with the decision maker is at the base of it, and getting their attention because they're all very busy and they get solicited all the time. So it's being consistent and operating with what I say is consistent intensity.
Yeah, I think the sad thing about it is that 99% of the people listening to this will not take any action as a result of it.
Well, yeah, no doubt. But this is because it is hard. But the 1% that do, they're gonna change their lives as a result of that. So it's like you got to ask yourself: Are you the 1%? Are you gonna go down the road less traveled? Because anybody who's truly made it out there, they went and did the work. It
Yep.
didn't just magically fall in their lap, even though it might seem like it that was some days, it did not just fall in their lap.
Yeah. What? How does that? The harder I work, the luckier I get.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's it. You just provide yourself more opportunities.
Yeah. So I'm going to change gears a little bit. Lighten it up. Your company has done tens of thousands of jobs.
Something like that. Yeah.
What is the biggest thing that has gone wrong across, if like that one job that like comes to mind is that was an absolute train wreck?
Oh, so many. I mean,
I want to hear the war stories.
in our earliest years, we were hired to paint the Calgary airport, and so we had to do it overnight, of course. But so we were painting the curb along the departures level, and starting around 4 or 5 a.m. Like that's early flights or whatever, right? So people are getting dropped off and dragging we're clearly painting their area there, that area, and we had signs and all that sort of stuff. But people started walking through and dragging their luggage through the wet curb we had just painted, and we had paint all throughout the airport, like everywhere. And so I remember that it eventually made its way into like airplanes and things like that. So luckily we were, that the airport knew that people just don't, I guess, listen to signs and things like that. But that was another whole thing.
Oh man.
Yeah. Others being, there was a large parkade being built in Calgary, which they were doing. That they were using our TBL durables on every marking in there. But then the issue came is that the pavers did not pave it correctly, so they had to rip it all up and do it, which significantly delayed us like into December, January, and it's a semi-open parkade, and we had a minus 30, cold blast, and it had to get done. And so, really just dealing with, the TBL durables material does cure down to minus 30. So you can spray. And they're like, well, good thing we're using this product. So I'm sending out the crews out there in minus 30 to spray. And it takes 2 hours for it to cure at that temperature. So, and it gets extra thick and things like that. So, all sorts of different issues related to that there as well, and just total debacles. But those are the top two that come to mind
Yeah.
right out of the gate there. And I know other franchisees have had all sorts of their own challenges there, but it's classic stuff.
I love it. I mean, as much as we all try to systemize our businesses and create processes, you're still gonna get punched in the face.
Oh yeah, that's it. I mean, that's actually it's funny. I had a franchisee call me, and he's just like, "I feel like I'm getting punched in the face every single day." And I was just like, "Yeah, this is what you wanted, right? Was to run your own business, and this is why most people don't do this. It's running a business is all about solving problems and variables, and it comes to the point where you just begin to anticipate them." And that's when the experience starts to come in. But I mean, you can't learn how to deal with being punched in the face without being open to it. And so that's just the reality of being a business owner, and you got to stick your neck out there.
Yeah. What are they in the boxing world? They call that having a strong chin.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. Right on, John. Well, thanks so much for this conversation, man. This was awesome. I learned a lot. I took like 2 pages of notes that I'm going to start implementing in my business. I hope that other people also took notes. And if not, if you're painting, if you're on job site, just listening to this, highly recommend going back and actioning this. You could literally make millions of dollars just
Yeah.
by implementing what you learn in this last 45 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's just doing the work. I don't know what else to say.
Yeah. So John, you launched, just real quick, you went from 17 locations at the start of 2022.
Yeah.
Now you're quickly approaching 100. What is the vision for Everline Coatings?
Well, right now, yeah, we're very, very top heavy with brand new franchise owners. We're expanding very quickly through the United States. We still have some franchises left in Canada to fill out. But right now, taking a lot of lessons and mentorship from some of the greats out there, namely Charlie Chase over at First Service Brands, Brian Scudamore, 1-800 Got Junk, and Dina Dwyer over at Neighborly Brands and things
A
like
couple
that.
of great mentors there.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. So just I'm right now a young Brian, starting up 1-800, and so he's been able to kind of share his insight on the pitfalls I'm going to come across and things like that there. So, but at the end of the day, though, a franchise system is nothing without successful franchisees. And I know there's going to be people that are like, I don't want to pay that royalty on my business or whatever. We do something what we call royalty return, where we are able to quantifiably prove that you are actually gaining at least 30 to 50% more value back on top of the royalties that are paid to us, because of us being able to utilize the our buying power and things like that. So right now the main focus is building out, making sure that the franchisees are as well supported as possible. I mean, for the last 2 years, we've won the top franchise brand in Canada for support. So looking to go for number 3 here, and so supporting them and continuing expanding our operational capacity and expanding our B2B services just in general.
Love it, man. Taking over the world one parking lot at a time.
Working on it.
Right on. Thanks again for your time here today, and yeah, man, keep crushing it.
All right, thanks, man. Yeah, thanks for having me, and we'll good luck to everybody out there.
Thanks for listening to the Painter Growth Podcast. If you want to grow your painting business, go to www.paintergrowth.com or click on the top link in the description. Talk soon.